My name is Caleb Evans, 42 years old, construction manager here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Built my career like I build houses, brick by steady brick. I'm not flashy. I'm reliable. Show up early, leave late, get the job done right. That's my code. Maybe it's old-fashioned, but it's earned me respect in the trade and a life I thought was solid, predictable. A life I'd built around Genevieve. Jen, my wife of 6 years. Jen's different. Beautiful, charismatic, loves the finer things. She came from a family with more money than mine ever had, though they weren't Charlotte royalty or anything. We met, fell hard, and maybe I ignored the slight mismatch in our backgrounds, the way her eyes sometimes glazed over when I talked about concrete pours or zoning permits. I loved her energy, her laugh, the way she made our neat suburban house feel brighter, more alive. The house itself, a sturdy brick colonial in a good neighborhood, was mine before we even met. Bought with a chunk of inheritance money my grandfather left me, the deed solely in my name. We had signed a prenup before the wedding. Her lawyer father insisted, ironically enough, to protect her family assets. I hadn't cared, signed it without much thought. What was mine was hers, I figured. That's what marriage meant, right? Looking back, I should have paid more attention to the fine print in more ways than one. It happened on a Tuesday. Hot as blazes for early June in North Carolina. I'd spent the morning at the office, buried in paperwork for a big commercial development deal we were trying to close, then headed out to the site after lunch. Got halfway across town in my work truck, AC blasting, when I realized my phone was sitting on the kitchen counter back home. Damn it. Needed it for calls with the surveyors later. Figured I'd swing by quickly. Jen was probably out anyway. Tuesdays were usually her yoga followed by the lunch with friends day. Pulling into the familiar driveway, the house looked quiet, just as I expected. Sunlight glinted off the upstairs windows. I cut the engine, the silence settling in, broken only by the distant drone of a lawnmower down the street. I unlocked the front door, my work boots tapping on the oak hardwood floors I'd painstakingly installed myself 3 years ago, before Jen moved in with her mountain of designer boxes. The house felt still, cool after the outside heat. "Jen!" I called out just in case. No answer. Good. Quick grab and go. I spotted my phone on the granite countertop right where I'd left it next to the fancy espresso machine she'd insisted we needed, and charged to my credit card naturally. I picked it up, glanced at a couple of missed work alerts. Decided since I was here I might as well run upstairs and change out of my sweat-soaked work shirt before heading back to the site. That's when I heard it. Just as my boot hit the bottom step of the main staircase, a sound drifted down from the second floor. Soft at first, then clearer. Laughter. Her laugh. That light, airy sound that usually meant she was delighted by something. But why would she be laughing alone upstairs? My stomach gave a slight, uneasy twist. I paused, listening. Maybe she was home, on the phone with one of her friends, watching some silly reality show on the bedroom TV. Yeah, that had to be it. Still, something felt off. Too quiet otherwise. I started up the stairs, each tread creaking slightly under my weight, a familiar sound I'd always meant to fix. The laughter came again, closer now, definitely from our bedroom at the end of the hall, and this time, it wasn't just her. There was another sound mixed in. Lower, distinctly male. A chuckle. My steps slowed. The uneasy twist in my gut tightened into a cold knot. Who the hell? I reached the top of the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. The sounds from within were clearer now. Murmured voices. Another soft laugh from Jen. The low rumble of a man's voice responding. My mind raced, trying to find an innocent explanation. A repairman? Her cousin visiting unexpectedly? But the tone? Intimate. Relaxed. It didn't fit. My hand hovered over the doorknob, heart starting to pound now, heavy and slow. Part of me screamed to just turn around, go back downstairs, pretend I hadn't heard anything. But the other part, the part that needed to know the truth, however ugly, took over. I pushed the door open. The scene that greeted me burned itself onto my retinas instantly. General, my wife. Tangled up on our bed, the duvet a rumpled mess around them with my younger brother Ryan. His shirt was half unbuttoned, her silk robe gaped open, and they weren't talking or watching TV. Their lips were locked, hands roaming, lost in each other like they were the only two people in the world. The air in the room, our bedroom, was thick with the cloying scent of her expensive French perfume, the one I'd maxed out a credit card for last Christmas, mingled with the unmistakable musk of sex. My heart didn't race. It didn't pound. It just sank. A heavy, cold stone dropping into the deepest, darkest part of a lake, pulling everything else down with it. Time seemed to slow, the humming of the air conditioner the only sound besides their oblivious movements. They didn't see me at first. Then Ryan's eyes flickered open mid-kiss, locking with mine over Jen's shoulder. He froze, his face draining of color, a mask of pure, panicked guilt. Jen must have felt him stiffen. She pulled back slightly, turning her head, her dark hair tumbling over her bare shoulder. She saw me standing there in the doorway. And she didn't gasp. She didn't scramble for cover. She didn't stammer out excuses or denials. She smirked. A slow, deliberate, utterly chilling smirk spread across her face. She casually wiped her swollen lips with the back of her hand, her eyes holding mine with defiant amusement. "Well, Caleb," she said, her voice cool, sharp, dripping with the confidence she always wore when she knew she held the upper hand, or thought she did. "Looks like you caught us." She shifted slightly, leaning back against the headboard, crossing her arms almost nonchalantly. Ryan just sat there beside her, frozen, unable to look at me. "Guess the surprise is ruined," Jen continued, her smirk widening slightly. She gestured vaguely between herself and Ryan. "So, what are you going to do about it? Run off? Yell? Throw something?" She laughed, a short, brittle sound. "You can cry in court, Kayla, but you can't actually do anything about it, can you?" Her words, the casual cruelty, the utter lack of remorse or shame, the implication that I was powerless. They hit me, but not in the way she expected. I could have roared. I could have launched myself across the room, dragged Ryan out of my bed, torn the place apart. Every primal instinct screamed for violence and for release. But I didn't move. My hands stayed shoved deep in my work pants pockets. My face remained blank, wiped clean of expression of the sheer cold shock. And in that moment, staring at my wife tangled with my brother in my bed, smirking at me like I was an inconvenience she'd finally swatted away, something inside me didn't break. It clicked, coldly, clearly. They just handed me a way out of the compromises, the constant effort, the feeling of never quite being enough for her world. She thought she was winning, thought she was delivering the final humiliating blow. She had no idea she'd just given me the keys to my own freedom. I didn't say a single word. I didn't acknowledge her taunt, didn't look at Ryan again. I just held her gaze for one long, silent moment, letting her see the absolute absence of the reaction she craved. Then I turned around and walked out of the bedroom, closing the door softly behind me. I walked back down the creaking stairs, my footsteps measured, deliberate. I went to the kitchen counter, picked up my keys, picked up my phone. "What?" Jen's voice echoed shrilly from the top of the stairs. She must have scrambled out of bed, thrown on her robe. "No tantrum? No yelling? You're just going to run away, Caleb? Run away like the coward you are?" I didn't answer. I didn't look back. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside into the blazing afternoon sun. It hit my face, momentarily blinding, but feeling strangely clean after the poisoned air of the house. I got into my truck, the familiar scent of worn leather and maybe a hint of sawdust grounding me. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, but my mind was already moving, calculating, processing. She thought I was weak because I didn't scream, because I didn't fight for her. She thought she'd won. She didn't know. She didn't know the quiet strength, the cold resolve solidifying inside me. She didn't know I wasn't running away. I was just getting started. I drove. I don't even know where at first, just drove, hands gripping the wheel of my truck. The Charlotte suburban streets blurring past in a meaningless smear of green lawns and brick houses that suddenly felt alien. The shock that had frozen me in the bedroom doorway began to thaw, replaced by a sickening heat rising in my chest. General Ryan, my brother, in my bed, her smirk. "You can cry in court. You can't do anything about it." The sheer calculated cruelty of it, the arrogance. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd reveled in it, thrown it in my face like cheap confetti at a funeral. And Ryan? His silence, his complicity, felt almost worse. My own blood. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The urge to turn back, to storm into that house and unleash the rage now boiling inside me, was immense. Smash things. Yell until my throat was raw. Confront them. Demand. What? An apology? Remorse? They had already shown me who they were. A screaming match wouldn't change that. It would just give Jen the drama she probably craved. Another scene to twist for her narrative, casting me as the unhinged, jealous husband. Remember that cold, clear thought from the bedroom resurfaced, cutting through the rage. They just handed me a way out. Her arrogance, her assumption of my powerlessness. That was the crack in their facade. That was my opening. She thought I couldn't do anything. She was about to find out how wrong she was, but not with noise, not with fists, with something quieter or sharper. I needed to think, to plan. I found myself pulling into the parking lot of a tired-looking 24-hour diner off a secondary highway miles from my neighborhood, the kind of place with cracked red vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that hummed too loudly, and coffee that always tasted faintly burnt. Anonymity. That's what I needed. I slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl cool against my still sweaty back. The clatter of plates, the low murmur of conversations, the smell of frying bacon. It was normal, mundane, a world away from the scene I'd just fled. A waitress older with tired eyes and a name tag reading Marge shuffled over, wiping down the table with a damp cloth. "You okay there, honey?" she asked, her voice raspy but kind, noticing something in my face I hadn't yet acknowledged myself. I forced a nod. "Yeah, fine, just need a minute." "Coffee?" "Please, black." She poured it into a thick ceramic mug, the dark liquid steaming. "Anything to eat?" I glanced blankly at the laminated menu, the pictures of pancakes and burgers swimming before my eyes. Food felt impossible. Just a cheeseburger, I guess, fries. Order something normal, act normal. Marge scribbled it down and shuffled away. I stared out the window, the coffee untouched, my mind racing now, cold and analytical. "Okay, Caleb, think like you're managing a failing project. Assess the damage, identify the stakeholders, hostile, define the objective, clean exit, protect assets, formulate a strategy." I pulled out my phone, the one I'd gone back home for, the catalyst for this whole disaster. My thumb hovered over Jen's contact, then Ryan's. Delete? Block? No, not yet. Information was key right now. I scrolled further down past work contacts, past friends, until I found the entry. Evelyn Hayes, my late mother's closest friend, a force of nature. And conveniently, one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in Charlotte. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not since Mom's funeral, but Mom always said, "If you're ever in real trouble, call Evelyn. She cuts through the bull." I was in real trouble. I took a deep breath and dialed. She picked up on the second ring, her voice exactly as I remembered. Crisp, intelligent, no nonsense. "Evelyn Hayes." "Ms. Hayes." "Evelyn. It's Caleb. Caleb Evans, Susan's son." A brief pause, then recognition. "Caleb, good heavens, it's been too long. How are you, dear? Is everything all right?" Her tone held genuine warmth, but also an immediate perception that this wasn't a social call. "Not exactly, Evelyn," I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible. I need your help. I need a lawyer." "All right," she said simply, the warmth replaced by professional focus. "Tell me." And I did. Sitting there in that noisy diner booth, surrounded by strangers, I laid it all out, coming home early, the bedroom door, Jen and Ryan, her smirk, her exact words. "Looks like you caught us." You can cry in court. You can't do anything about it. I relayed it clinically, factually, keeping the raw emotion out of my voice as much as possible. Just the facts. Evelyn didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp or offer condolences. She just listened, the silence on her end conveying focused attention. When I finally finished the story hanging raw and ugly in the air, she spoke, her voice sharp as flint. "Okay, Caleb," she said. "First things first, breathe. Second thing, she's wrong. You can do plenty. She just handed you the moral high ground and a truckload of leverage on a silver platter." Relief, sharp and unexpected, made me dizzy. "She did?" "Absolutely," Evelyn confirmed. "Cheating with your brother in the marital bed, and her arrogant reaction. Judges hate that kind of blatant disrespect, especially when property division comes up. But," she cautioned, "we don't play her game. We don't get loud. We don't get messy. We get strategic. They think they've got you cornered, expecting you to explode or fall apart. Let them." "Let them?" I echoed, confused. "Yes. Arrogance like that, Caleb, it makes people careless. It's a shovel. We just stand back, stay quiet, and let them dig their own grave. Here's what you do. Her voice took on a commanding tone now, outlining the strategy. You go back home. What? Go back there? The thought made my stomach churn. Yes, tonight. You walk in, you act not normal maybe, but quiet, subdued, like you're hurt, confused, maybe even broken. You move into the guest room. You don't confront them. You don't yell. You barely speak to them unless necessary. You become a ghost in your own house. Why? Because right now they feel powerful, defiant. They expect to fight. When you don't give it to them, it throws them off balance. More importantly, while you're there, you document everything. Every time they flaunt their relationship in front of you. Every time she wears your shirt. Every time he drinks your beer or drives your truck without asking. Every snide comment, every late-night noise. Dates, times, specifics. Keep a detailed log. Phone notes, a private journal. Evidence, Caleb, that's your power now. Their blatant disrespect becomes our ammunition. Okay, I said slowly, and the cold logic of it starting to sink in. It was counterintuitive going back into that poisoned atmosphere, but I saw the strategic advantage. And, Evelyn continued, remind me about the house ownership and that prenup your mother told me about years ago. House is mine, bought with Grandpa's inheritance before the wedding. Deed is solely in my name. Prenup? Yeah, we signed one. Her dad insisted. I barely read it. Excellent, Evelyn purred. Find those documents. Get me copies tomorrow. If that house is truly your separate property and the prenup is solid, Jen's claim to it is likely zero, regardless of her decorating budget. Her position is far weaker than she thinks. Her arrogance is based on ignorance. She paused. So, go home. Be the ghost. Document. Send me the deed and prenup first thing. Come see me tomorrow afternoon. We'll formalize everything then. Okay, Evelyn, I said, feeling a grim sense of purpose solidify within me. Okay, I can do that. Good, she said. And Caleb? Stay calm, stay quiet. Let them hang themselves. We'll handle the rest. I hung up, paid the waitress, Marge gave me a sympathetic look as I left the uneaten burger, and walked back out into the still bright afternoon. The plan was audacious, requiring a level of self-control that I wasn't sure I possessed, but the sheer cold-blooded strategy of it appealed to something deep inside me. Jen wanted to fight? Fine. But we wouldn't be fighting on her terms. I didn't go home, not yet. The thought of walking back into that house tonight, seeing them there, I needed one more night to steel myself. I found a cheap, anonymous motel off the I-77 interchange, the kind with flickering neon signs and questionable carpet. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. I lay on the lumpy mattress, the noisy hum of the window AC unit buzzing in my ears, and stared at the textured ceiling. I didn't cry. The hurt was there, a deep, crushing ache. But the humiliation had burned away, replaced by a cold, focused anger. I thought about Jen's smirk, Ryan's frozen guilt. I thought about Evelyn's words, let them dig their own grave. I thought about Jen's taunt, you can't do anything about it. A slow, humorless smile touched my lips in the dim light. Oh, I could do plenty. And I would start by giving them exactly what they didn't expect. An exit so quiet, so clean, they wouldn't even see the door closing until it locked behind them. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. And I was finally ready to play. I woke up the next morning on that lumpy motel mattress with the first rays of sun piercing the cheap blinds, feeling surprisingly calm. The raw shock and blinding rage of yesterday had receded, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity, sharpened by my conversation with Evelyn Hayes. Her words echoed in my head. Act normal, document everything, let them dig their own grave. It was a bizarre, counterintuitive strategy, but it felt right. Fighting them head-on, yelling and throwing punches like they probably expected, would just validate their narrative that I was the unstable one. No, my weapon wouldn't be. Noise. It would be silence, observation, and meticulously gathered facts. After a quick shower in the motel's cramped, mildew-scented bathroom, I pulled on the same clothes from the day before. Work jeans, a plain t-shirt. I bypassed breakfast, grabbed my keys, and drove back towards the house. My house. Pulling into the driveway felt surreal, like returning to a crime scene where I was both a victim and an investigator. I used my key, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. Silence. Then I heard movement from the kitchen. I walked in to find Jen and Ryan sitting at the kitchen island, my spot at the head of the table now occupied by my brother. Nursing coffee mugs, looking rumpled and slightly hungover. They both looked up as I entered, surprise flickering across their faces, quickly masked by studied indifference, or in Jen's case, a faint, challenging smirk. "Look who decided to crawl back," Jen said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Had a nice little sulk?" I didn't answer. I walked past them to the coffee maker, poured myself a mug, added milk, and leaned against the counter, sipping slowly, deliberately not meeting their eyes. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in my chair, suddenly finding his coffee mug intensely interesting. Jen just watched me, that smirk playing on her lips, clearly expecting something, a reaction, an accusation, anything. I gave her nothing. After finishing my coffee, I rinsed the mug, placed it in the dishwasher, and turned to leave the kitchen. "That's it?" Jen called after me, annoyance creeping into her voice. "No screaming? No threats? You really are pathetic, Caleb." I paused at the doorway but didn't turn. "Just tired," I said quietly, then walked towards the stairs. I heard Ryan let out a low laugh behind me, quickly stifled, and Jen muttered something I couldn't catch. Let them think what they wanted. Let them think they had won round one. I went straight to the guest room, a small, sparsely furnished space at the back of the house, mostly used for storage. I pulled my duffel bag from the closet where I left it weeks ago, after returning from the motel that first night, though I hadn't actually slept here yet. I unpacked my few toiletries, laid out my work clothes for the next day. This would be my base of operations, close enough to observe, distant enough to maintain the facade. That night was the first of many spent lying on the stiff guest room mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds drifting from the master bedroom down the hall. Their muffled laughter, the low murmur of their voices, sometimes louder arguments followed by reconciliatory silence. It was torture, yes, but a necessary part. Each sound, each interaction I observed, became another entry in the meticulous log I started, keeping in a small, plain notebook hidden under the mattress, supplemented by timed notes on a secure app on my phone. Wednesday, 8:14 a.m. Jen emerged from master bedroom wearing my blue flannel shirt, kissed Ryan at kitchen counter. Ryan drinking last IPA from fridge, my purchase. Wednesday, 6:32 p.m. returned from work. Jen on phone in living room, laughing loudly and telling friend, sounded like Brenda, how I ran off like a coward, and how liberated she feels now. Ryan lounging on my recliner, feet up on coffee table. Thursday, 11:03 p.m. Loud music playing from master bedroom after I went to guest room, doors slamming, followed by deliberate performative moaning clearly audible through wall. Ignored. I kept it factual, objective. Dates, times, observations, no emotion, no interpretation. Just the raw data of their disrespect, their arrogance, their utter disregard for me and the house I owned. Each entry felt like laying another brick in the case Evelyn Hayes was building. Living like that, as a ghost in my own home, required an iron will I didn't know I possessed. Days turned into a week, then two. Jen and Ryan grew bolder in my silence. They treated the house entirely as their own. Dishes piled up in the sink unless I quietly washed them myself, which I stopped doing after day 3. Empty beer cans and takeout containers littered the living room. Ryan started using my truck without asking, leaving the gas tank near empty, sometimes tracking mud into the floor mats. Jen would parade past me in clothes I knew were new, bought with the joint account I hadn't yet closed, on Evelyn's advice, let them rack up traceable debt for now, humming happily, occasionally shooting me a look that dared me to comment. They tried direct provocation, too. Jen accidentally bumping into me in the hallway, Ryan making snide remarks about my moping in the guest room, both of them cranking the TV volume late at night when they knew I had a 5 a.m. start at the construction site. Each time I held onto Evelyn's advice, stay calm, stay quiet, document. I'd nod politely, murmur a non-committal response, or simply walk away, retreating to the guest room or heading out for a long, punishing run. The runs became essential. Every morning before dawn I laced up my shoes and hit the quiet Charlotte streets, pushing myself harder each day, the physical pain a welcome distraction from the emotional gnawing inside. Pounding the pavement mile after mile, I channeled the anger, the hurt, the betrayal into forward motion. I wasn't running away anymore, I was running through it. Work was the other anchor. I buried myself in managing the construction sites, focusing on logistics, problem solving, the tangible reality of steel and concrete. I took on the extra projects my boss, Gregory, offered, relishing the exhaustion at the end of the day. My crew noticed I was quieter, maybe more driven, but they respected the boundary. Didn't pry, just offered a quiet support. "Rough patch, boss?" Mike, my late hand, asked once during a lunch break. "Something like that," I replied, and he just nodded, passing me a sandwich. That unspoken understanding meant more than any awkward sympathy could have. Meanwhile, the legal gears turned silently in the background. I met with Evelyn again, providing her copies of the deed, the prenup, and my growing log of documented incidents. She reviewed everything with sharp efficiency. "The prenup is ironclad, Caleb," she confirmed, tapping the document. "Signed 6 years ago, clear language. She gets her personal belongings, half of any joint accounts open during the marriage, and that's it. No claim on the house, your inheritance, or your separate premarital assets. And his," she added with a grim smile. "Brother Ryan has absolutely zero legal standing here besides being an unwelcome guest, soon to be formally trespassed." She advised me on securing my finances, changing passwords, quietly moving funds from joint accounts that held mostly my earnings into new separate accounts she helped set up. We discussed the eviction process. Their behavior, flaunting the affair in your home, creates a hostile environment. Combined with your sole ownership in the prenup, serving them a 30-day notice to vacate is perfectly justified and legally sound, she assured me. We just need a bit more documentation of their ongoing disregard for your tenancy rights as the owner. Let them keep digging. They obliged in digging with gusto. One night I came home late from a site inspection to find they'd thrown a small party. Empty bottles, pizza boxes, music still faintly playing. Ryan was passed out on the couch, Jen nowhere to be seen initially, then emerging from the master bedroom looking flushed, wearing only one of my old band t-shirts. I documented it, date, time, state of the house, Ryan's presence, and went straight to the guest room, locking the door behind me. I overheard snippets of their conversations sometimes, usually late at night when they thought I was asleep. "He's just there," Jen complained once, her voice sharp with frustration. "It's like living with a zombie. He won't fight, he won't yell, he just exists. It's creeping me out." "He will crack soon," Ryan muttered back, his voice slurred slightly. "Give it time, he's weak. Always has been." I smiled grimly in the dark. Weak? Number I was calm. I was calculating. And I was building a case so solid, so undeniable that when the time came they wouldn't have a leg to stand on. Every smirk, every provocation, every beer Ryan drank from my fridge was just another nail they were hammering into their own coffin. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy, and they were too blinded by their own arrogance to see it coming. The strange, tense routine continued for another 2 weeks. Me, the quiet ghost haunting the edges of my own house. Them, Jen and Ryan, growing increasingly bold in their occupation, their initial flicker of uncertainty after my return, replaced by blatant disregard. They treated the place like a frat house crossed with a couple's retreat. Late-night music, overflowing trash cans, Ryan's muddy boots perpetually by the front door, Jen parading around in my old sweatshirts like declarations of ownership. They'd alternate between pointedly ignoring me and trying to provoke a reaction with loud arguments, the content of which often seemed performative, designed for me to overhear, or equally loud displays of affection in the living room when I walked through. Through it all, I stuck to Evelyn Hayes' script: observe, document, do not engage. My notebook filled with entries, factual and devoid of emotion, painting a clear picture of their behavior. Monday, 7:45 p.m. Jen attempting fake moans from master bedroom while I was in kitchen. Ryan laughed. Tuesday, 9:12 a.m. Ryan took my truck without asking. Returned 2 p.m., low fuel light on, mud on floor mats. Wednesday, 10:30 p.m. Loud argument between G and R regarding lack of respect. G slammed bedroom door. Each entry felt like another stone added to the wall I was building, the one they couldn't see. My calls with Evelyn were brief, professional. I emailed her scanned copies of the deed and the prenup. Her confirmation came back swift and decisive. Ironclad, Caleb, just as I remembered your mother telling me years ago. House is yours, separate property. Prenup waives any claim she might think she is based on duration of marriage or contributions to upkeep. Combine that with their current behavior. You're golden. She paused. The documentation you're keeping is excellent. Establishes a clear pattern if needed, though frankly the ownership and prenup are likely sufficient. Are you ready? Ready? I wasn't sure if ready was the right word. Resolute? Yes. Determined. Absolutely. Ready to detonate the life I'd known, even the toxic version it had become. I took a deep breath. Yeah, Evelyn, it's time. Good, she said, satisfaction in her voice. I'll have the official 30-day eviction notice drawn up today. Standard legal service. It gives them a clear legal deadline to vacate your property. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I went online and found a small, furnished one-bedroom apartment available for a short-term lease downtown, close to my office, far from the house. I signed the lease electronically and arranged to pick up the keys the next day. I packed a single duffel bag with essentials, work clothes, toiletries, my running gear, the hidden notebook, and stashed it in the back of the guest room closet. My exit plan was in place. The eviction notice arrived via certified mail 2 days later, addressed to me, forwarded from Evelyn's office. A crisp legal document demanding that Genevieve Evans and Ryan Evans vacate the premises at my house address within 30 days, citing my sole ownership and termination of their permissive residency. Holding it in my hands felt heavy. Final. I waited until the following afternoon. A Thursday. I came home from the construction site around 4 p.m., deliberately timing it. Just as expected, they were both there, lounging in the living room. Jen was flipping through a glossy magazine, feet propped up on the coffee table I'd refinished. Ryan was sprawled on the couch that I paid for, scrolling through his phone, a half-empty can of my beer sweating on the end table beside him. Neither looked up immediately when I came in. I was just background noise. Perfect. I didn't take off my work boots. I walked over to the counter, set down my keys with a slightly louder clack than usual. Then I pulled the official-looking envelope from my inner jacket pocket. Genevieve, I said, my voice flat, cutting through the drone of the TV they had playing. She glanced up, one perfectly sculpted eyebrow raised, that familiar smirk starting to form. What? Finally decided to speak, Caleb. I didn't answer with words. I walked across the living room rug, my rug, and dropped the eviction notice squarely in her lap, right on top of her glossy magazine. The paper landed with a soft, definitive thud. She stared down at it, the smirk faltering, replaced by confusion. What the hell is this? She asked, picking it up gingerly as if it might bite her. Read it, I said simply. I stepped back, leaning against the doorframe, crossing my arms, watching. Ryan sat up now, lowering his phone, suddenly interested. Jen ripped the envelope open carelessly, her nails catching on the paper. She pulled out the legal document, her eyes scanning the header. I saw the exact moment she registered the words, Notice to vacate. Her face drained of color. The smirk vanished completely, replaced by stunned disbelief, then a rapid flush of anger. Eviction notice? She spat the words out, holding the paper up like I'd handed her something toxic. Are you kidding me, Caleb? You wouldn't dare. I met her eyes, my expression calm, unreadable. I already did. Her mouth opened, then closed. For a split second, she looked utterly lost. Then Ryan snatched the paper from her hand, his own brow furrowing as he read it. 30 days? Vacate your property? This can't be legal, man. He blustered, trying to sound tough, but panic flickered in his eyes. Jen shot to her feet, the magazine sliding unnoticed to the floor. She pointed a trembling finger at me. This is my house too, Caleb. I live here. My name might not be on your precious deed, but I put money into this place. Furniture, renovations. You can't just kick me out. I didn't flinch. It's not your house, Jen, I stated calmly, factually. It never was. It was purchased with my funds before we were married. The deed is solely in my name. And the prenup you signed 6 years ago, the one your father's lawyer drafted, it explicitly waives any claim you have to my premarital assets, including this house, regardless of contributions to upkeep or decoration. She froze, her hand still pointing, the color draining from her face again as the word prenup registered. She'd probably forgotten all about it, signed it dismissively years ago. When she was marrying the steady, reliable construction guy, she assumed she could easily manage. Ryan stood up now, too, tossing the notice onto the couch in disgust. You're bluffing, he said, stepping towards me, puffing out his chest slightly, trying to scare us. It's not a bluff, Ryan, I replied, my voice even. I didn't move from the doorframe. It's a legal notice. You both have 30 days to remove yourselves and your belongings from my property. After that, you will be trespassing. Jen laughed again, but it was a high-pitched, shaky sound this time, bordering on hysterical. 30 days? Are you insane? Where are we supposed to go? You think you can just throw us out on the street? I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. I'll drag you through court for years. I shrugged, a deliberate, casual gesture that seemed to infuriate her more. Go ahead. Talk to your lawyer. Have them call Ms. Evelyn Hayes. I let the name drop, watching for the reaction. I knew Jen was aware of Evelyn's reputation as one of the toughest family law attorneys in Charlotte. Just as I expected, real fear flashed across Jen's face at the mention of Evelyn's name. The bluster momentarily deflated. They didn't take it quietly after that initial shock. Jen started pacing, yelling about betrayal, how I was cold, heartless, how I'd regret this. Ryan paced behind her, muttering threats, kicking at the leg of the coffee table. It was exactly the messy, emotional reaction they had expected from me weeks ago. I stood there, leaning against the doorframe, watching them unravel, letting them burn out their energy. I didn't engage. I didn't argue. I just observed. "You're nothing without me!" Jen finally shrieked, spinning to face me, her eyes wild. "You think you can just erase 6 years like this?" I looked at her, really looked at the woman I had once loved, now distorted by rage and panic. "You already erased it, Jen," I said quietly. "Not me." That seemed to shut her up just for a second. Long enough. "Well," I said, pushing myself off the doorframe, "looks like you two have a lot to discuss. And a pack." I turned, walked calmly to the guest room where my duffel bag waited by the door, picked it up and walked back towards the front door, ignoring the renewed shouting that erupted behind me. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" Jen screamed as I opened the front door. I paused on the threshold, turning back slightly, meeting her furious gaze one last time. "I'm going to my new apartment," I said calmly. "This place is getting a little crowded. You have 30 days. And then I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me on their shock, their anger, and the life we once shared. I didn't run. I walked steadily to my truck, got in, and drove away, leaving them standing in my house, holding my eviction notice, facing the consequences of their own actions. The game wasn't just beginning anymore. I'd just made my move. Checkmate wasn't far off. Driving towards my quiet downtown rental, the weight in my chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. The 30 days stipulated on the eviction notice crawled by, measured out in tense silence from my end, and, according to my lawyer, Evelyn Hayes, frantic scrambling punctuated by impotent legal threats from theirs. I stayed put in the small downtown rental, focusing tunnel vision on work, hitting the gym with punishing intensity, and letting Evelyn handle the increasingly desperate communications from Jen's lawyer. I didn't need to engage. The law, the deed, and the prenup were all firmly on my side. On the 30th day, a humid Tuesday at the end of July, I felt a knot of anticipation tighten in my stomach. This was it. D-Day. I tried to focus on blueprints at the office, but my mind kept drifting back to the house, wondering if they were actually packing, if they'd try some last-minute stunt. The call from Evelyn came precisely at 5:01 p.m. "Caleb," she said, her voice crisp and businesslike. "Just received confirmation from the locksmith and my paralegal who oversaw the premises at the deadline. They are officially out. Keys returned as per instruction. The property is vacated." A breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped me in a long, slow sigh. "Okay. Good. How did they leave it?" Evelyn chuckled dryly. "Predictably, like angry toddlers forced to clean their room. Clothes strewn about, some takeout trash left behind, maybe a few new scratches on the floor the paralegal meticulously documented. Nothing structurally damaged, just petty vindictiveness, easily cleaned up. Most importantly, they are gone. The locks have already been changed. The house is solely yours again." "Thank you, Evelyn," I said, the relief immense. "For everything." "My pleasure, Caleb. Call me if anything else comes up, but legally this chapter is closed." That evening I didn't go back to the house immediately. I went for a long run along the river, pushing myself hard, letting the physical exertion scour away the last dregs of tension. Then I went back to my temporary apartment, showered, ordered pizza, and slept soundly for the first time in over a month. The next morning I drove to the house. My house. Using the new key Evelyn's office had provided felt significant. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The silence was different now. Not tense, but empty. Waiting. They had indeed left a mess. Drawers pulled out, stray clothes on the floor, kitchen counters sticky. But underneath the petty debris, The house felt lighter, cleansed, free. I walked through the rooms, my footsteps echoing slightly. The living room where Jen had smirked. The kitchen where Ryan had drunk my beer. The master bedroom. I stood in the doorway, looking at the stripped mattress, the faint indentations where our bed used to be. No anger surged this time, just a quiet finality. This room, more than any other, needed erasing. I didn't waste time. That very afternoon, Maya Sharma, the interior designer, met me there. Armed with blueprints and boundless energy, she walked through the space with me, her enthusiasm infectious. "Okay, Operation Phoenix," she declared cheerfully. "Rising from the ashes. Let's gut the bad memories and build something amazing." And we did. The renovation became my consuming project outside of work. Demolition started almost immediately. Walls came down, metaphorically and literally in the case of one awkward partition Jen had insisted on. The old carpets were ripped up, revealing the solid oak beneath that just needed refinishing. We planned the new kitchen, the fireplace addition, the complete overhaul of the master suite into a space that felt calm, masculine, and entirely mine. Pouring my energy into tangible creation, sanding floors, discussing tile choices, even helping the crew hang drywall on weekends, felt incredibly therapeutic. I was literally rebuilding my environment, mirroring the internal reconstruction happening within me. Work at the construction firm provided another vital anchor. Leading the complex art center project demanded focus and skill, reinforcing my sense of competence. Gregory, my boss, pleased with this progress and my leadership, confirmed the promotion to senior project executive with a significant raise. Financial stability, earned through my own efforts, felt like the ultimate repudiation of Jen's parting taunts. The divorce itself proceeded anticlimactically in the background. With the prenup and house ownership clear, there was little for Jen's lawyer to contest. We signed the final papers through our attorneys a few months later. Clean, quiet, done. News of Jen and Ryan trickled back indirectly, sparsely. Theo mentioned hearing Jen had moved back in with her wealthy parents temporarily, the relationship with Damien definitively over after the public nature of their affairs end. Apparently, his professional reputation couldn't handle the scandal. Ryan, according to a grim text from my sister Sarah, was completely estranged from our father and struggling to find steady work, bouncing between temporary gigs and friends' couches. I registered the information with a detached sort of sadness, primarily from my father having to deal with the fallout from his youngest son's betrayal, but mostly their lives felt incredibly distant, irrelevant to the one I was now building. I kept running, the miles increasing, my body lean and strong. I even started tentatively writing again, not the anonymous blog this time, but a private journal exploring the lessons learned, the unexpected strength found in that quiet exit. It wasn't about blame anymore, it was about understanding my own resilience. Months later, the house renovation was complete. Standing in my reclaimed living room, warmed by the new fireplace, surrounded by clean lines, natural wood tones I had chosen, and the deep blue walls Maya had encouraged, I felt a profound sense of peace. This space was mine, reflecting my taste, my work, my journey. One evening, Maya came over to see the final touches, bringing a bottle of good bourbon to celebrate. We sat on the new, comfortable sofa. No floral patterns in sight, talking easily about design, about work, about life. Her easy laugh and sharp intelligence were a comfortable presence. There was an undeniable connection forming, slow and steady, built on mutual respect and shared interests, utterly different from the consuming, ultimately destructive fire of my marriage. It was too soon to label it, but the possibility felt warm, hopeful. Later, alone, looking out at the Charlotte skyline from my new, larger kitchen window, I thought about the journey. The betrayal had been the catalyst, the painful shove I needed to escape a situation that was slowly eroding me. Jen had thought my silence was weakness, but it had been my shield and my strategy. It allowed me to reclaim control, to protect myself, and ultimately to rebuild on my own terms. I'd chosen integrity over drama, quiet action over empty rage. In doing so, I hadn't just survived. I had created something better, stronger, more authentic. The quiet exit hadn't been an ending at all. It had been the beginning of truly finding my way home to myself.